On the afternoon of May 14, a woman presenting a French passport under the name Chloé Dubois checked into the Hôtel de Bergues in Geneva. Her appearance was meticulously curated to project an aura of academic affluence. She was dressed in a tailored linen suit, her hair was elegantly pinned, and her movements were characterized by a quiet, unobtrusive confidence that hotel staff were trained to associate with old money and intellectual pursuits. Her luggage, a set of well-worn but high-quality leather valises, was heavier than it looked, containing not only the expected collection of art history tomes and sketching materials but also a false bottom in the largest case. Within this hidden compartment, nestled in custom-cut, high-density foam, lay a suite of miniaturized electronic equipment, a set of sterile medical supplies, and a small, nondescript case containing a device that bore no resemblance to anything in an art historian's toolkit. Chloé Dubois was an art historian specializing in the influence of Safavid miniature painting on European modernism, a legend constructed over 3 years with layers of digital and physical evidence. The woman herself, known within the Mossad only by the codename Avital, was a specialist of an entirely different sort. She was a terminating asset from the Kaidan, the agency's elite assassination unit, and her presence in Geneva signaled the final phase of an operation that had consumed thousands of man-hours and millions of shekels. The problem that necessitated Avital's deployment to Switzerland was a man named Ghassan Al-Hamdi. To the public financial world, he was a discreet but highly effective investment consultant, a Lebanese national with a Swiss education who managed portfolios for wealthy clients across the Middle East. To the intelligence communities of Israel and the West, he was something far more dangerous, the chief financial architect for Hezbollah's Unit 910, its external operations branch responsible for planning and executing attacks outside of Lebanon. Al-Hamdi was a new breed of adversary, one who wielded financial instruments with the same lethal precision as a sniper firing a rifle. He had perfected a system of laundering funds through a labyrinth of shell corporations, charitable fronts, and cryptocurrency exchanges so complex that it defied conventional financial tracking. Money designated for a hospital in Beirut could, through a series of digital transactions spanning a dozen countries in a matter of minutes, emerge in a bank account in South America, ready to finance the acquisition of explosives for a sleeper cell. His genius lay in his ability to blend illicit funds with legitimate market activities, making the line between investment and terror financing functionally invisible to standard audits and surveillance. For years, Mossad's Unit 8200 and the Economic Warfare Division had attempted to penetrate his network, but their efforts were consistently thwarted. Al-Hamdi practiced a level of operational security that bordered on pathological paranoia. He eschewed most forms of digital communication, changed his patterns of life randomly, and compartmentalized his network so effectively that captured low-level couriers knew nothing of value. Attempts to recruit sources within his inner circle had failed catastrophically, resulting in the exposure and execution of 2 promising assets. Al-Hamdi was not merely a facilitator, he was a strategic choke point. His removal was deemed critical, not just to disrupt a single funding stream, but to cripple the logistical backbone of Unit 910 and force the organization into a state of financial paralysis, thereby delaying or preventing an unknown number of future attacks. The stakes were extraordinarily high, as intelligence intercepts suggested Al-Hamdi was in the final stages of capitalizing a major operation targeting Israeli civilian infrastructure. Ghassan Al-Hamdi was a product of 2 conflicting worlds, a duality that made him both exceptionally effective and profoundly dangerous. Born into a prominent Shurey family in southern Lebanon, he had been sent to a prestigious boarding school in Switzerland as a teenager, followed by a degree in economics from the University of Geneva. He was fluent in Arabic, French, English, and German, and he moved through the exclusive circles of European high finance with an ease that belied his origins. His colleagues saw him as a brilliant, if intensely private, financier who possessed an uncanny intuition for market trends. What they did not see was the ideological fervor that burned beneath the surface, a conviction forged during the 1982 Lebanon War, where an Israeli airstrike had killed his younger sister. This personal trauma, combined with a deep-seated ideological commitment to Hezbollah's cause, transformed his professional skills into weapons. He viewed the global financial system not as a means of generating wealth, but as a battlefield, a sprawling, unregulated space where the West's decadence could be turned against itself. His operational profile, compiled by Mossad's research division, was a study in contradictions. He appreciated fine wine, tailored suits, and classical music, yet his personal life was austere and devoid of intimate relationships. He maintained a penthouse apartment in Geneva and a villa on the coast of Lebanon, but spent little time in either, preferring the sterile anonymity of luxury hotels. He was meticulously organized, his digital life secured by layers of custom encryption, and his physical movements were unpredictable. He never took the same route to a meeting twice. He would frequently abandon a taxi mid-route and proceed on foot, or enter a building only to exit through a different entrance minutes later. This wasn't simple caution, it was a deeply ingrained tradecraft designed to defeat even the most persistent surveillance. He had no vices that could be exploited, no gambling debts, no mistresses, no drug habits. His only vulnerability, the psychological assessment concluded, was his intellectual vanity and a profound sense of isolation. He believed he was smarter than his adversaries, and the solitary nature of his work left him with no one to whom he could truly relate. This, the planners in Tel Aviv decided, would be the microscopic fissure they would exploit. The failure of conventional intelligence methods forced the Mossad Caesarea department, which oversees special operations, to devise a solution that was as unconventional and sophisticated as the target himself. The proposal that emerged from a series of high-level strategy sessions was codenamed Operation Helvetia. It was an audacious plan that moved beyond simple assassination and into the realm of integrated warfare, combining a physical elimination with a simultaneous cyber attack and psychological operation. The core concept was to leverage al-Hamdi's single identified vulnerability, his intellectual isolation and arrogance. The plan rejected a traditional honey trap, which al-Hamdi's paranoid nature would almost certainly detect. He was not a man to be seduced by simple physical attraction. Instead, the operation called for the deployment of a female operative who could engage him on an intellectual level, presenting herself as a peer from his own rarefied world of culture and intellect, but one who was entirely disconnected from his sphere of finance and politics. The objective was not to extract information through seduction, but to use a carefully cultivated, non-threatening relationship to gain physical proximity in a private, secure setting, specifically, his own hotel suite. The termination itself had to be executed with a method that was both silent and, if possible, capable of mimicking a natural medical event to delay discovery and complicate any subsequent investigation. This would create a critical window of time. In the minutes following the confirmed liquidation, a dedicated team from Unit 8200 would launch a targeted cyber assault, using credentials and digital keys that the agency hoped to acquire from al-Hamdi's personal devices at the scene. The goal was a complete data exfiltration from his encrypted hard drives and servers, a digital smash and grab that would be the true prize of the operation. The assassination was merely the key to unlocking the vault. The obstacles were immense. The operative would have to bypass the target's extreme paranoia, gain access to one of the most secure locations in a high-security hotel, execute the termination flawlessly, facilitate the data seizure, and exfiltrate from a country known for its efficient law enforcement, all without leaving a trace. The risk of failure was catastrophic, promising not only a major diplomatic incident with Switzerland but also the potential for al-Hamdi to be alerted, forcing him deeper underground and making him forever untouchable. The preparatory phase of Operation Helvetia was a masterclass in meticulous, multidisciplinary intelligence work, representing the fusion of cutting-edge technology, deep psychological conditioning, and the painstaking craft of legend building. The technological component was spearheaded by the agency's dedicated research and development division, which was tasked with creating the tools for both the physical and digital aspects of the mission. For the termination, they developed a highly concentrated, fast-acting neurotoxin derived from a synthetic analog of succinylcholine. This specific compound was chosen because it induced rapid paralysis of the respiratory muscles, leading to asphyxiation that closely mimicked the physiological effects of a massive heart attack or stroke. Crucially, the toxin metabolized and broke down within the body very quickly, leaving behind minimal and ambiguous biological markers that would be difficult to identify in a standard autopsy unless pathologists knew exactly what to look for. The delivery system was equally sophisticated. It was a gas-pressurized microinjector, no larger than a lipstick tube, designed to deliver the payload through a single, hollow needle just 0.2 mm in diameter and 4 mm long. The injection was nearly painless, feeling like little more than a mosquito bite, and the device was silent. For the digital assault, Unit 8200's engineers designed a custom piece of hardware, a small, passive radiofrequency scanner disguised as a high-end power bank. When brought within a few meters of Alhamdi's laptop and smartphone, it was designed to capture the faint electronic emissions generated during the device's handshake protocols with local Wi-Fi networks, a process that could potentially reveal cryptographic vulnerabilities. A separate team of programmers worked on a zero-day exploit tailored for the specific, heavily customized version of Linux that intelligence indicated Alhamdi used. The plan was for Avital to place the scanner near his devices, providing the cyber team, stationed in a nearby safe house, with the data needed to execute the breach the moment she gave the signal. Every piece of technology was custom-built, tested hundreds of times in laboratory settings, and designed to be both ruthlessly effective and utterly deniable. The selection and preparation of the operative, Avital, was the most critical human element of the operation. She was not a typical field operative. Recruited from the ranks of military intelligence analysts in Unit 8200, she possessed a rare combination of analytical brilliance, a photographic memory, and an innate talent for languages. She was already fluent in French and had achieved near-native proficiency in Levantine Arabic. Psychologically, she was assessed as having an exceptionally low resting heart rate, a high degree of emotional self-regulation, and an almost unnerving ability to compartmentalize, to perform under extreme stress while maintaining a calm exterior. Her motivation was also a key factor in her selection. Her family had emigrated from France, and her uncle had been killed in the 1994 AMIA bombing in Buenos Aires, an attack that bore the logistical fingerprints of Hezbollah's Unit 910. This personal connection provided a deep, cold reservoir of resolve that the agency's psychologists believed would anchor her during the immense pressures of the mission. Her training was brutal and comprehensive. Over a period of 18 months at a secure facility in the Negev desert, she was transformed from an analyst into a Kaidan operator. She was schooled in Krav Maga, focusing on close-quarters techniques designed to disable an opponent quickly and silently. She underwent extensive surveillance and counter-surveillance training, learning to detect and evade watchers in dense urban environments. She spent weeks practicing infiltration and exfiltration techniques, memorizing the layouts of airports, train stations, and border crossings. A significant portion of her training was psychological. She participated in simulated interrogations designed to break her will and test her ability to maintain her cover story under duress. She was taught to control her own physiological responses, to suppress the blush of a lie, to steady a trembling hand, to regulate her breathing to project an aura of absolute calm. Her handlers drilled into her the art of social engineering, of subtly manipulating conversations and building rapport with a target by mirroring their body language, speech patterns, and intellectual interests. She was not being trained to be an assassin in the traditional sense, she was being molded into a human key, a precision instrument designed for a single, specific lock. The construction of her cover identity, the art historian Chloe Dubois, was as resource-intensive as the development of the mission's technology. A dedicated team from the Mossad's Legends department spent more than a year building a completely verifiable, multi-layered backstory. They began by creating a digital ghost, fabricating a birth certificate, school records, and a family history rooted in Lyon, France. They registered her for a degree at the Sorbonne, retroactively creating a full academic transcript and even submitting a ghostwritten master's thesis on her stated area of expertise, which was subsequently archived in the university's online database. They created social media profiles on various platforms, which were then painstakingly backdated over several years. These profiles were populated with posts, photographs, and interactions with a network of other fabricated accounts, creating the illusion of a rich and consistent personal history. Photographs showed Chloe at conferences in Florence, on research trips in Istanbul, and socializing with friends in Parisian cafes, all carefully staged and digitally aged. To solidify the legend in the physical world, the team published 2 academic articles under her name in obscure but legitimate art history journals. They opened a bank account for her at Crédit Agricole, which was then used to create a pattern of normal financial activity, paying rent on a non-existent apartment in Paris, buying books from online sellers, subscribing to academic publications. They even purchased a small collection of antique art books and had them shipped to a mail drop, creating a paper trail of her professional interests. Her props for the mission were chosen with equal care. The books in her luggage were real, and the pages contained genuine, handwritten annotations in French that were consistent with her academic background. Her sketchbook was filled with detailed charcoal drawings of Islamic geometric patterns, demonstrating a level of skill that would withstand inspection. Even her choice of perfume, a subtle, classic scent from a niche Parisian perfumery, was selected to match the profile of a sophisticated European academic. The legend of Chloé Dubois was not merely a cover story, it was a fully realized identity, a psychological construct that Avital was trained to inhabit so completely that it would become her reality for the duration of the mission. Avital's insertion into Geneva was executed with the quiet precision that defined the entire operation. She flew from Tel Aviv to Rome on her Israeli passport, passed through immigration, and spent 6 hours in the city to create a clean break in her travel history. In a nondescript airport hotel room, she transformed herself. She changed her clothing, altered her hairstyle and makeup, and retrieved her French passport and supporting documents from a hidden compartment in her carry-on bag. She then took a commercial flight from Rome to Geneva, landing as Chloé Dubois, a French citizen on a short research trip. A separate 3-person Mossad team, consisting of a communications specialist, a surveillance expert, and a team leader who also served as Avital's handler, had arrived in Geneva 2 days earlier, traveling on a mix of German and Belgian passports. They established a tactical operations center in a rented apartment with a direct line of sight to the Hôtel de Bourges. This apartment was a technological nerve center, equipped with sophisticated signals intelligence gear to monitor the hotel's communications, encrypted links back to headquarters in Tel Aviv, and the computer systems needed to execute the cyber attack. Upon checking into her hotel room, Avital began her first critical task, a meticulous sweep for surveillance devices. Though her room had been pre-screened by an advanced team, this was a standard procedure she was trained never to skip. It served the dual purpose of ensuring her own security and reinforcing her tradecraft discipline. She used a simple, commercially available bug detector, an item a privacy-conscious academic might plausibly carry. After confirming the room was clean, she began to establish her routine, the pattern of life that would define Chloé Dubois. She spent the first day visibly engaged in her academic work, sitting in the hotel's grand lobby for hours, surrounded by open books, taking notes, and occasionally making calls on her Swiss burner phone to a prearranged colleague at the University of Geneva, a number that routed to a Mossad language specialist in Tel Aviv. Her goal was to become part of the hotel's scenery, a quiet, unremarkable presence. The build-up to the main event was a patient, calculated exercise in social engineering and surveillance. The support team tracked Ghassan al-Hamdi from the moment he landed at Geneva Airport. They observed his counter-surveillance drills, the sudden stops, the doubling back, the use of reflective surfaces to check for a tail, and logged his patterns. He was, as his file suggested, exceptionally disciplined. He arrived at the hotel and spent the first 24 hours in his suite, likely conducting his own security sweeps and establishing secure communications with his network. Avital's first contact with him was engineered to appear entirely coincidental. On the third day, knowing from the surveillance team that al-Hamdi typically took his morning coffee in the hotel's garden lounge, Avital positioned herself at a nearby table. She was deeply engrossed in a large, illustrated book on Persian art. As al-Hamdi passed, she accidentally knocked a stack of her notes off the table, scattering them near his feet. His instinct, as a man raised with a certain code of formal politeness, was to help her collect them. Avital thanked him profusely in French, her demeanor slightly flustered but charming. She made no attempt to prolong the conversation, allowing him to be the one to reinitiate contact later. The hook was set. Over the next 4 days, they had a series of brief, seemingly spontaneous encounters. In the lobby, at the hotel bar, by the elevator. Avital cultivated the interaction with surgical precision. She spoke primarily about her work, a topic she knew was both complex enough to engage his intellect and entirely removed from his own world, making it safe. She projected an image of passionate intelligence, but also of a certain academic naivete about the harsher realities of global politics and finance. She listened more than she spoke, asking him insightful questions about his own vague profession, international consulting, that allowed him to talk without revealing anything of substance, thus stroking his ego. She never appeared overly eager, sometimes giving him only a brief nod of acknowledgement as they passed. This push and pull, this projection of an independent and intellectually self-sufficient woman, was designed to disarm his suspicion and pique his curiosity. On the 5th day, he invited her for a drink. On the 6th, he suggested dinner. During these meetings, Avital carefully managed the conversation, guiding it away from personal histories and toward abstract ideas. The final step came on the evening of the 7th day, when he invited her to his suite to see a rare antique map he had acquired, an appeal to their shared interest in history and art. The operations team, listening via a microbug planted in the hallway by a logistics operative disguised as a room service attendant, confirmed her access. The final phase was now in motion. The moment Avital stepped into Ghassan al-Hamdi's penthouse suite, the operation entered its most critical and dangerous stage. The suite was opulent but impersonal, its decor reflecting the transient luxury of a man who lived in hotels. Her senses were on high alert, her mind processing dozens of variables simultaneously. She noted the position of his laptop on the desk, the smartphone charging beside it. She registered the layout of the room, identifying potential exits and obstacles. On the surface, she was Chloe, impressed by the map and engaged in light conversation. Internally, she was Avital, running through the final checklist of her mission. She carried a small, elegant clutch purse, inside which lay the lipstick-sized injector and the power bank scanner. As he poured them both a glass of wine, she complimented a piece of art on the wall, a maneuver that caused him to turn his back to her for a few crucial seconds. In that window, she discreetly placed the clutch on a small table next to his desk, positioning the scanner within optimal range of his devices. The conversation flowed, and Avital maintained her role flawlessly, a testament to her years of psychological conditioning. Her heart rate, monitored by the agency through a subdermal sensor, remained almost unnaturally steady. The signal to act was a prearranged phrase. After approximately 20 minutes of conversation, her handler, listening in from the nearby apartment, would cause her burner phone to vibrate silently 3 times. This confirmed that the scanner had successfully acquired the necessary data and the cyber team was poised to strike. When she felt the vibrations against her leg, she knew the moment had come. She stood up, feigning a slight dizziness from the wine. She reported that she needed a moment of fresh air and walked toward the balcony, a move that would naturally bring her path to intersect with his as he rose to join her. As she passed behind his chair, she stumbled slightly, her left hand reaching out to his shoulder to steady herself. It was a perfectly natural, almost clumsy gesture. But her right hand, holding the injector concealed in her palm, moved with lightning speed. She pressed the tip against the exposed skin of his neck, just below the hairline. The device discharged its contents in a fraction of a second. The microneedle was so fine that he likely felt nothing more than a pinprick, if he felt anything at all. She immediately apologized for her clumsiness, smiled, and continued to the balcony. He stood up to follow her, took 2 steps, and then his expression changed from one of mild concern to confusion. His hands went to his chest, his knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the thick Persian rug without a sound. Avital did not look back. She stood on the balcony for exactly 90 seconds, breathing the cool Geneva night air, her posture betraying no hint of the lethal act she had just committed. This cool-down period was a critical part of her training, designed to prevent an adrenaline-fueled rush to escape that might attract attention. Her mind was a cold, clear machine. She re-entered the suite, her movements deliberate and economical. She retrieved her clutch from the table, taking the scanner with her. She picked up the wine glass she had used and, with a silk cloth she carried for this purpose, wiped it clean of any fingerprints, replacing it on the bar. She performed a final visual sweep of the room, her analyst's eyes searching for any anomaly, anything she might have left behind. Satisfied, she opened the suite door, checked the hallway, and exited, closing the door quietly behind her. Her walk to the elevator was unhurried. She passed a hotel employee in the hall and gave him a polite, unremarkable nod. In the elevator, she rode down with a German couple, exchanging pleasantries about the weather. She crossed the grand lobby, her pace steady, her expression serene. No one gave her a second glance. She was just another guest returning from a late-night drink. She did not go back to her room. Instead, she exited the hotel through a side entrance, walked 2 blocks, and dropped her burner phone and the injector device into a pre-designated storm drain. She then proceeded to the Gare de Cornavin, the city's main train station, where she boarded a late train to Zurich. In the privacy of the train's bathroom, she changed her appearance again, emerging with a different hairstyle and glasses. She discarded the Chloé Dubois wardrobe in a locker in Zurich, and the next morning, she flew from Zurich to Athens using a third passport, this one Canadian. By the time hotel staff discovered Ghassan Alhamdi's body late the next morning, Avital, the woman who never was, had vanished. The aftermath of Operation Helvetia unfolded precisely as the Mossad had planned. The initial cause of Alhamdi's death was listed by Swiss authorities as a sudden cardiac arrest, a conclusion supported by his age and the lack of any visible signs of trauma. The subtle metabolic clues left by the toxin were missed by the standard toxicological screening. This crucial delay provided the agency with a 48-hour window of deniability and operational freedom. During that time, the data harvested from Alhamdi's devices proved to be a treasure trove of intelligence far exceeding their most optimistic projections. The Unit 8200 team, using the captured cryptographic keys, successfully decrypted his entire digital archive. It contained detailed information on dozens of Hezbollah's international financial networks, the names of covert operatives and sympathizers in Europe and South America, and, most critically, the full operational plan for the impending attack on Israeli infrastructure, which was revealed to be a coordinated bombing campaign targeting the country's primary water desalination plants. Armed with this intelligence, the Israeli security services were able to preemptively roll up the domestic terror cells involved, while the Mossad worked with allied agencies to neutralize the international components of the network. Over the following months, dozens of arrests were made globally, and bank accounts containing over $100 million were frozen, effectively severing the financial lifeline of Unit 910. The strategic impact was devastating. Hezbollah's external operations were thrown into chaos, crippled by a sudden lack of funds and the paranoia that swept through their ranks as they realized the extent of the breach. For Avital, the consequences were more personal and profound. She was debriefed extensively in a Tel Aviv safe house, her every action and observation recorded and analyzed. The identity of Chloé Dubois was officially retired, her digital footprint scrubbed from the internet, her existence relegated to a classified file deep within the agency's archives. Avital received a quiet commendation and was given an extended leave, but the mission had left an indelible mark. She had inhabited a fictional persona so completely and performed an act of such finality that the line between her true self and the operative she had become was permanently blurred. The clinical detachment that had made her the perfect instrument for the mission was now a barrier in her own life, a psychological armor that she could not easily remove. She had solved the problem of Ghassan Alhamdi, but in doing so, she had been transformed into something that could not fully return to the world she had fought to protect. What is the true cost of security when the methods used to achieve it require a nation to cultivate individuals capable of such profound deception and clinical violence? Can an operative, after successfully becoming a perfect weapon, ever truly be decommissioned and return to a normal human existence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story compelling, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel.